We are not gathered here to talk about something ordinary. We are here to speak about something remarkable, something that will be written in the history of Burkina Faso with pride. A miracle unfolded before our eyes, and it happened without a single coin from the IM. That man is Captain Ibrahim Traoré. What happened over the past 7 days was not just a cleanup campaign. It was a movement, a statement, a message to the world that Burkina Faso has awakened. Under the guidance and inspiration of Captain Traoré, the streets were cleaned, the garbage was cleared, and the dust of despair was replaced with the light of self-worth. No foreign consultant came to organize us. No international agency funded our effort. And yet, look at what was achieved. From Ouagadougou to the smallest village, men and women took action, not because they were paid, but because they were proud. This is what true leadership looks like. Captain Traoré did not just give orders. He ignited a spirit. He reminded us that the strength we look for outside has always been within us. He stood firm in front of the world and said, "We will not wait for permission to fix our home." And the people responded, not with hesitation, but with unity, courage, and determination. Some may ask, how was it possible? No foreign aid, no massive budgets, no international NGOs. The answer is simple: belief. Traoré believed that Burkinabe hands could heal Burkinabe soil, and we proved him right. This week, we cleaned more than our streets. We cleaned our image. We cleared away the idea that we are weak or dependent. We showed Africa and the world that sovereignty is not just a word, it is a way of life. To those watching from afar, understand this: Burkina Faso is rising, not because it was saved by others, but because it chose to save itself. And to Captain Traoré, this nation thanks you, not because you did the work for us, but because you reminded us that we were always capable. You helped us see what we had forgotten, that dignity, once awakened, cannot be silenced. This was more than a cleanup. It was the beginning of a new Burkina Faso, proud, determined, and unshakably free. In the past week, something extraordinary happened in Burkina Faso. What began as a call to clean our streets quickly grew into a wave of unity, discipline, and national pride that swept across the entire country. From the cities to the smallest villages, the people of Burkina Faso rose with one voice and one purpose: to take ownership of their land, their communities, and their dignity. This was not just a cleanup campaign. It was a moment of awakening, sparked by the vision and leadership of Captain Ibrahim Traoré. Captain Traoré did not issue commands from afar or rely on external systems to mobilize the nation. Instead, he inspired. He led by example and by conviction, and the people responded. Under his leadership, the campaign became a symbol of something much deeper than sanitation. It became a reminder of our shared identity, our strength as a people, and our ability to take action on our own terms. The power of his leadership lies not in what he demanded, but in what he awakened. People from all walks of life came forward: youth, elders, farmers, students, soldiers, and civil servants. They did not act out of fear or obligation, but out of pride. The streets were filled not just with brooms and tools, but with songs, laughter, and a renewed sense of community. There was no need to wait for orders, because the message was already clear. Burkina Faso belongs to its people, and its future depends on their hands. Traoré gave the people something more powerful than any material aid. He gave them back their sense of ownership and direction. What we witnessed was not just a physical transformation of our environment, but a social and psychological one. This cleanup effort became a national movement that reminded us who we are. It was an act of collective responsibility, a declaration that we are no longer passive observers of our destiny. Every street cleared, every schoolyard swept, every corner made clean was a symbol of a country refusing to be defined by its struggles. It was proof that we are capable of unity without crisis, discipline without force, and progress without foreign prescriptions. Perhaps most powerfully, this movement reshaped the image of Burkina Faso, both internally and in the eyes of the world. Too often, African nations are shown as places that are always waiting for help, for direction, for approval. But this initiative told a different story. It showed that we are not helpless, and we are not dependent. The people of Burkina Faso did not wait for aid to act. They acted because they knew it was time. They acted because they knew it was time. They acted because their leader believed in them, and that belief became contagious. Captain Traoré has reignited something that had long been dimmed by years of political instability and outside interference. He has shown that leadership is not about control, but about awakening the will of a people. He did not carry the brooms himself in every province. He didn't need to. His words, his clarity of purpose, and his refusal to bow to foreign pressure gave people the confidence to move forward on their own. In his courage, the nation found its reflection. In his example, we found our own strength. This cleanup was not a miracle in the mystical sense. It was a miracle of unity, the kind that happens when people come together around a shared purpose, free of manipulation or exploitation. It was a miracle born from within, not handed down from above. And that makes it even more powerful. It is a reminder to all of us that national pride is not found in speeches or slogans, but in action, in the willingness to pick up the tools, step into the streets, and build something together. Let the world take note. This was not a project funded by outsiders or managed by distant agencies. It was the will of a sovereign people, led by a man who dared to believe that we could take care of ourselves. And we did. Now the challenge is to carry this spirit forward. The real success of these 7 days lies in what comes next, in whether we continue to act with the same unity, the same discipline, and the same pride that filled our streets this past week. If we do, then this moment will be remembered not just as a cleanup, but as the beginning of a new chapter in our nation's history. A chapter defined by self-belief, by action, and by a leadership that trusts in its people. Captain Ibrahim Traoré may have lit the flame, but it is now up to us to keep it burning. Let us move forward, with our hands, our hearts, and our shared hope for a Burkina Faso that stands tall, walks proud, and never waits again. In the heart of Burkina Faso, a quiet but powerful transformation has taken place, not through orders, coercion, or financial reward, but through inspiration. Over the course of 7 days, the country came together in a way that few thought possible. At the center of this movement was Captain Ibrahim Traoré, not issuing commands with an iron fist, but awakening a spirit long buried under years of dependency and disillusionment. What happened during this national cleanup campaign was not just the clearing of streets and markets. It was the reawakening of a people, brought together by a leader who trusted them before asking for their trust in return. Captain Traoré didn't rely on the tools of control. He didn't need to. His strength has never come from how loudly he speaks or how strictly he governs, but from the sincerity of his purpose and the clarity of his vision. He looked at the people of Burkina Faso, the youth, the elders, the workers, the women, the soldiers, and saw not victims of circumstance, but the true custodians of the nation's future. And that belief spread. It passed from one neighborhood to the next, from one village to another, like a spark catching fire. There were no threats, no promises of reward, and yet, across every region of the country, people rose up to act. Children swept the yards of their schools. Vendors cleaned the grounds around their markets. Civil servants worked shoulder to shoulder with ordinary citizens. What brought them all together was not fear or obligation. It was pride, pride in their land, pride in their identity, and pride in the message they were sending to the world. We are not broken, and we do not need to be fixed by anyone but ourselves. This unity did not happen by accident. It was the result of a new kind of leadership, one rooted in dignity, honesty, and the refusal to treat people like they are incapable. Captain Traoré did not see Burkina Faso as a country waiting for rescue. He saw a people waiting to remember who they were, and through his example, his humility, and his resolve, he helped them remember. He made every citizen feel that they had a role to play, and that their role mattered. The power of this movement was that it crossed all barriers. Political divisions, ethnic lines, economic gaps, all were temporarily washed away under a shared sense of purpose. For 7 days, Burkina Faso was not a country fractured by its past, but a nation united in its present. This was not because of speeches or slogans, but because of the character of the man who led it. A man who walks with the people, not above them. A man who believes that national transformation starts not in foreign capitals, but in the hearts of ordinary citizens. Such unity is rare, and it must never be taken for granted. It is a fragile, powerful thing, and it cannot be built by force. It grows only when people feel seen, respected, and believed in. Captain Traoré understood this. He gave the people more than instructions. He gave them responsibility and ownership. And in doing so, he gave them pride. Not the pride of waiting for someone else to act, but the pride of knowing that they are capable of action themselves. What we witnessed was not a display of political power, but a demonstration of collective will. The cleanup effort became a mirror in which every Burkinabe could see the possibility of change. And perhaps more importantly, it became a reminder that change does not require permission. It only requires belief and the courage to begin. Under Traoré's guidance, the people did not just follow a campaign. They became the campaign. There is a lesson in this for all of us, that unity, when built on trust and shared vision, can accomplish more than money or mandates ever could. That true leadership is not measured by control, but by how deeply it connects to the soul of a people. Captain Traoré has shown that when a leader believes in the people, they will rise, not because they are told to, but because they choose to. This past week was not only a moment of national service, it was a turning point in our understanding of leadership and citizenship. The cleanup may be over, but what remains is more powerful than swept streets or cleared drains. What remains is a country reminded of its potential, and a people united under a leader who knows that inspiration is the strongest force of all. What unfolded over the course of 7 days in Burkina Faso was not merely a campaign to sweep the streets or tidy up public spaces. It was something far deeper, far more significant. It was a moment of national consciousness, a collective act of reclaiming identity. The cleanup began with simple tools, brooms, shovels, gloves, but what it turned into was a movement that stirred the soul of an entire country. This was not about trash. It was about dignity. It was not about appearances. It was about meaning. In every pile of waste removed, there was a symbolic clearing of mental burdens, of a history too often written by others. This nationwide effort quickly transformed from a logistical exercise into an emotional and psychological shift. From the capital to remote rural villages, people were not just responding to a call to tidy their surroundings, they were participating in a declaration, a bold statement that Burkina Faso refuses to remain in the shadows of foreign influence or in the grip of imposed narratives. This was an assertion that the people of this nation are ready to define themselves by their own hands, values, and determination. It is easy for outsiders to look at a cleanup campaign and see only the surface. Citizens working in the streets, schools freshly painted, marketplaces swept clean. But those who stood on the ground, who walked side by side with neighbors, know that this was much more than cosmetic. It was a rejection of the idea that progress only comes from external help. It was a moment in which the nation told itself and the world, we will not wait to be saved because we are already saving ourselves. This effort was a mirror held up to society, one that revealed who we are and who we are capable of becoming. For years, the image of Burkina Faso, like many other African countries, has often been filtered through the lens of crisis, poverty, or conflict. But in these 7 days, the people of Burkina Faso painted a different picture. It was a picture of unity, of hope, and of grassroots strength that no foreign campaign or imported aid could ever replicate. When men, women, and children from different regions, ethnic groups, and backgrounds come together for a shared purpose, it is no longer just an act of service. It is an act of nation-building. The cleanup became a symbolic act of liberation. It said that we no longer accept to live under layers of physical and psychological neglect. It said that we will not let our streets reflect the false idea that we are incapable of order or initiative. In every cleared alleyway and restored public square, there was pride, there was memory, there was resistance against a system that has long benefited from portraying African nations as helpless and eternally dependent. It also became a demonstration of the people's hunger for meaningful change. They were not coerced or forced to participate. They came willingly, some with tools, others with nothing but their hands and determination. What drove them was the knowledge that this effort was not about impressing outsiders. It was about restoring self-respect. There was no need for foreign cameras to capture it, no polished media packages to explain it. It was raw, real, and completely ours. There is something profoundly powerful in a movement that is born from within. When people come together not because they are told to, but because they want to, that is when transformation begins. What we saw was not a government campaign imposed from the top. but a nationwide embrace of an idea that every citizen has a role in rebuilding, and that rebuilding begins with reclaiming our space and our pride. In that sense, the cleanup became a symbol of independence in the truest form. Not just political independence, but mental and cultural independence. For decades, independence has often been reduced to a date on the calendar, celebrated with speeches and ceremonies. But this was a living example of independence, people acting freely, with purpose and unity, for the betterment of their communities without waiting for external guidance or reward. Now that the campaign has concluded, the task before us is to carry its spirit forward. The roads may be cleaner, but the greater achievement lies in the shift that occurred within us. The cleanup was only the beginning. What matters now is whether we continue to walk in this spirit of collective responsibility, self-determination, and pride. Burkina Faso has reminded itself and shown the world that true change does not come from what is done for us, but from what we choose to do for ourselves. The 7-day cleanup may be over, but the national movement it sparked has only just begun. In the recent 7-day cleanup effort that swept across Burkina Faso, something remarkable unfolded, something that reached far beyond the physical act of cleaning streets and public spaces. From the bustling avenues of Ouagadougou to the quiet, remote villages nestled in the countryside, people came out in full force. They came without promises of payment, without pressure from foreign sponsors, and without any external reward. There was no foreign aid involved, no international agencies overseeing operations, no donor logos on banners. Yet every city and every village participated. What drove this massive mobilization was something far more powerful: national will. This campaign proved, in the clearest and most direct way, that the people of Burkina Faso possess a deep and untapped strength, an inner discipline and commitment that doesn't need to be purchased or imposed. The motivation came from within. The energy, the coordination, the sacrifices of time and labor, all came from ordinary citizens who saw in this campaign an opportunity to stand up for their communities and take responsibility for their shared future. There was no waiting for someone else to take the first step. People stood up together and moved as one. In a world where so many national projects are tied to external funding, monitored by foreign consultants, and executed under the terms of international stakeholders, what happened in Burkina Faso stands out as something rare and valuable. It was an act of collective will without dependency. No loans were needed, no conditions were accepted, and no debts were created. The people did it themselves, on their terms, in their own way. This was a project born from national purpose, not from outside prescriptions. The participation was not selective or limited to urban centers. It was total. Villages that often feel forgotten in broader national discussions took part with as much energy and commitment as the capital. In fact, in many rural areas, communities organized their efforts even more quickly and effectively, proving that the spirit of engagement does not depend on geography or resources. It depends on pride and determination. There was a shared understanding that cleaning one's environment was also a way of clearing space for a new kind of national consciousness. And it wasn't just the act of cleaning that mattered. It was the statement behind it. When a nation moves without being pushed, when people take initiative, not because someone tells them to, but because they feel a responsibility to do so, it shows that the foundation for lasting change is already present. Burkina Faso didn't need funding to find its strength. It needed a reason to believe in itself again. This campaign became that reason. It also challenged a long-held assumption that Africans, particularly in poorer nations, will only act when incentivized. What we saw in Burkina Faso is proof that this idea is false. The people did not need aid to act. They needed inspiration and leadership rooted in truth and shared identity. When that was provided, the result was full participation across the country, a show of unity that no amount of foreign assistance could have engineered. This initiative also revealed something crucial about the character of the Burkinabe people: their discipline. To maintain order, to organize teams, to divide tasks, and to see the work through without the oversight of international organizations requires not only willingness, but self-control, mutual respect, and a culture of cooperation. These are not traits that can be imported. They come from within, and they have long existed in the people of this land. This campaign simply gave them the space to emerge in full light. Even more powerful was the fact that this participation took place without fanfare. There were no grand ceremonies, no lavish events, no expensive media coverage to broadcast what was happening. The world's attention may not have been on Burkina Faso, but the eyes of the people were on one another. What mattered most was not external validation, but internal realization. People looked around and saw their neighbors working, and they joined. They saw their leaders present and engaged, and they followed, not blindly, but with shared purpose. The result was more than cleaner streets. It was a deeper awareness that true power resides in the collective will of a nation's people. It was a reminder that we do not have to be told what to do when we know who we are and what we stand for. Burkina Faso did not need to be funded to act. It needed to be trusted, to trust itself, and to be led by someone who respects that trust. What happened over those 7 days should not be underestimated. It was not just a campaign. It was proof that the heart of this country still beats strong and steady, even without external assistance. And when the people move together with shared purpose, no force is more powerful. In a world where African nations are too often portrayed through the lens of poverty, crisis, and dependency, something remarkable happened in Burkina Faso that challenged and reshaped that image. The 7-day nationwide cleanup campaign, initiated and led entirely by Burkinabe themselves, marked a turning point, not only for the country but for the broader narrative surrounding Africa. This was not just about removing trash or improving sanitation. It was about taking control of the story that has too often been told for us, rather than by us. For decades, the dominant image of Africa in global media has been that of a continent in constant need, of aid, of intervention, of rescue. Outside observers frequently paint African nations as helpless and unable to make progress without the guiding hand of international institutions or wealthy donor countries. This image has become so deeply rooted that even many within the continent have internalized it. But what Burkina Faso demonstrated through this campaign was a clear rejection of that stereotype. It said, without speaking a word, we are not waiting to be saved. We are capable of saving ourselves. The campaign did not rely on foreign organizations or their funds. It did not wait for approval from any international body. Instead, it was built on the collective will of the Burkinabe people, who came together to improve their environment, restore their pride, and reclaim their sense of purpose. This was a grassroots movement, made powerful not by resources but by unity. And in doing so, it offered a striking counterexample to the global narrative of African dependence. This initiative did more than clean streets. It cleaned the lens through which Burkina Faso, and by extension many African nations, are viewed. It showed that African countries can act independently, effectively, and with dignity. It reminded the world that progress is not always measured in GDP or foreign investment, but in the ability of people to come together and move forward with purpose. It showed that Africans are not passive recipients of charity, but active agents of change. What made this initiative even more powerful was its simplicity. There were no dramatic announcements, no grand budget allocations, and no international media campaigns. And yet, it gained the attention and respect of people around the world precisely because of its authenticity. It was not staged for the cameras. It was real. And it was led by people who understood that true development begins when you stop waiting for help and start building with what you have. The leader at the center of this moment, Captain Ibrahim Traore, did not just guide a campaign. He helped reshape how leadership itself is perceived in Africa. He did not rely on foreign consultants to strategize the effort, nor did he seek applause from international observers. Instead, he trusted in the people of Burkina Faso and gave them a reason to trust in themselves. That trust proved to be more powerful than any external support could have been. It turned an ordinary effort into a powerful example of what is possible when people believe in their own potential. In doing so, Burkina Faso became a voice for a different Africa. An Africa that no longer accepts being spoken for, pitied, or underestimated. This new narrative is not about rejecting the rest of the world, but about standing as equals within it. It's about saying that partnerships must be based on mutual respect, not control or dependence. It's about reminding the world that Africa has its own solutions, its own strength, and its own vision. This campaign was a quiet revolution. and its impact reaches beyond the borders of Burkina Faso. It serves as an inspiration to other African nations grappling with similar challenges. It invites them to look inward, to harness their own energy and values, and to believe that transformation is not something that comes from the outside, but from the spirit and determination of the people themselves. As the dust settles and the roads become clear, what remains is not just a cleaner country, it is a cleaner image of Africa itself, one no longer clouded by the assumptions of helplessness and failure, but illuminated by the truth of resilience, discipline, and hope. Burkina Faso has sent a powerful message. We are not defined by our struggles, but by how we rise to face them. And in doing so, it has helped turn a page in the long, complex story of Africa. This is not the end of the story, but the beginning of a new chapter, one written by Africans, in our own voice, on our own terms. In recent times, Burkina Faso has faced many challenges, social, economic, and political, that have tested the resilience and spirit of its people. Yet, amidst this adversity, a remarkable figure emerged to remind the nation of its true strength and identity. Captain Ibrahim Traore did something that no amount of rhetoric or external intervention had managed to do. He rekindled the national confidence of the Burkinabe people. He did not ask them to wait for better days or for help to arrive from outside. Instead, he issued a powerful challenge to rise, to act, and to believe in themselves once more. What began as a simple call to clean the nation's streets quickly blossomed into a revival of pride and unity that resonated deeply across every corner of the country. Captain Traoré's leadership came at a crucial moment. Many had grown weary of promises unfulfilled, of dependence on external forces that often seemed distant or indifferent. The people's faith in their own capacity to effect change had been shaken. But Traoré's message was clear and direct. The future belongs to those who refuse to wait. He did not appeal to fear or coercion. Instead, he appealed to a shared sense of identity and dignity. His confidence in the people was contagious. It inspired ordinary citizens to see themselves not as passive victims of circumstance, but as active participants in shaping their destiny. The nationwide cleanup campaign that he spearheaded was the physical manifestation of this renewed confidence. It was more than just an environmental initiative. It became a symbol of collective responsibility and national pride. Across cities, towns, and villages, people responded with enthusiasm, rolling up their sleeves and working side by side. This was not an effort driven by outside funding or international directives. It was a grassroots movement ignited by a leader who believed in his people and who called on them to believe in themselves. The citizens took to the streets with brooms and brushes. Something deeper was happening. The act of cleaning became a metaphor for cleansing the soul of the nation, sweeping away years of doubt, frustration, and external dependency. It was a reclaiming of agency. Each swept pathway, each cleared alley was a statement. We are here, we are capable, and we are proud of who we are. This revival of confidence was felt not only in the physical cleanliness of communities, but in the renewed spirit of cooperation and hope. Traoré's leadership also redefined the relationship between a leader and his people. Rather than ruling from a distance or relying on hierarchical commands, he led alongside them. His presence among the people, working, encouraging, listening, created a bond of trust and respect. He showed that leadership is not about power or control, but about awakening the potential within others. By trusting the Burkinabe people, he gave them permission to trust themselves. This approach shattered old narratives that have too often framed African leaders as distant or disconnected from their people. Captain Traoré's example showed that true leadership lies in humility, courage, and genuine connection. His ability to inspire without coercion, to unite without division, rekindled a sense of unity that had long been fragmented. This unity was essential, not just for the success of the cleanup, but for the healing and strengthening of the nation's social fabric. The impact of this revival extends far beyond the 7 days of the cleanup. It planted seeds of confidence that will grow and influence future generations. When a nation remembers its worth and acts on it, it changes the course of its history. Captain Traoré reminded the Burkinabe people that they do not need to be defined by external circumstances or negative perceptions. Instead, they can define themselves through action, resilience, and pride. This renewed national confidence is a powerful foundation upon which Burkina Faso can build. It opens doors to greater social cohesion economic development, and political stability. It strengthens the belief that solutions come from within, that the people themselves are the architects of their future. The revival sparked by Captain Traoré is a testament to the enduring strength of the human spirit when it is called to rise. In a broader sense, this story of rekindled confidence speaks to many nations and peoples around the world who face similar struggles. It reminds us that no matter how difficult the circumstances, hope and pride are never truly lost when a leader emerges who believes in the power of the people. Captain Traoré did not simply organize a cleanup. He ignited a movement of belief and renewal. Ultimately, the legacy of this moment will be measured not only by cleaner streets, but by the lasting transformation of how the people of Burkina Faso see themselves. It will be measured by the continued spirit of action, unity, and pride that the captain inspired. Through his leadership, a nation that had been weary has found its voice again. What he began is more than a campaign. It is a national revival, a restoration of confidence, and a reaffirmation of identity that will guide Burkina Faso's path forward for years to come.